Good morning everybody, I'm Steve and welcome to Green Side Up. This is the third part in how to start an allotment, and today I'm going to be talking about how to manage your expectations and how, or a reality check, whatever you want to call it. Also I'll be talking a little bit about bed layout and sizes, and later in the video I've also got a very good tip for measuring to get the exact size of raised bed that's suitable for you, but more of that later. Now, everybody's different, everyone has their strengths and weaknesses. I have a neighbour at home who's in his late 70s, bless him, and he can work all day on a garden and he could dig it all day, and he could probably dig 3 acres an hour. He's a little Trojan, unbelievable. But conversely, I know other people who are down on the allotments who can't dig much more than a 3x4 bed in a morning. It's not that they're weak or rubbish or hopeless, it's not their forte. I mean, where they fail in that area, then they excel in others, and it's just the way of things. So only you know exactly what you'll be capable of moving forward with your allotment. So you can take from that what you will, but to say some people can do a lot more than others, and that's just a fact of life. But anyway, to manage your expectations, and I've seen it a lot of times, people will start an allotment plot down here and they'll come down, they've got a big bag of seeds, big bag of packets of seeds that they've just bought from the garden centre, and they've got to break eggs with a stick and plant them all and grow everything. And you know, within 2 months they're overwhelmed with seedlings, not sure what to do, things start dying, they start failing in that respect, and a couple of months later they just give the plot up. So if you manage what you need to do in the first place before you even start, you'll have a clearer idea of where you're going, where you're heading, and you can look after those important things that you need to do. So what I suggest you do is to sit at home with a piece of paper with your family, get their thoughts and ideas too, and decide what it is exactly that you want to grow. And what I mean by that, if you want to grow potatoes, or if you want to grow salad stuff, so maybe lettuce, spring onions, radish, those sorts of things, write a list down of what you feasibly think that you can grow in that first year, and discuss it with the family that you're taking this veg home to. So that's the first thing. The next thing, that's probably the most important really, is decide how long, how many hours and how often you're going to spend on your allotment plot. It's no point really in, if you're only going to come down for an hour on a Sunday afternoon once a week, obviously, there's no point growing tomatoes and putting the greenhouse up, because they need a lot more watering than that, and it's these things that you need to think of. So if you're going to spend a Sunday afternoon down here with the family doing a little bit of digging and a little bit of tending, and maybe you can spare an hour or two in the week, then fine, then get that set in your mind and then stick to it. Don't say, oh, I can't be bothered this week. Go down, even if you're just going to stand there and look at a plant, make sure you go down. If you get out of that habit, you will soon get out of the habit of going. You'll miss something, and the end result will be that you'll end up leaving your plot, and nobody wants that. You know, we've gone through so much work already to get you on that plot. Why would you want to stop now? And let's say conversely, other people will be flying down the allotment every day for a couple of hours every evening, and you know, by the time they get to sort of the end of the summer, it's like Kew Gardens, and that's fantastic. So in the last video we talked about covering ground up. Now this is important because it means that there's some work being done elsewhere in your plot while you're working physically on the area right in front of you. So there's two things going on your plot straight away, and that helps you. So I think this black plastic that I use a lot of here is a very good friend. It's like having an extra gardener working with you, and it's very good for that. But so you've got that working for you there. You've planned out what hours you can do, you've written a list of what you wish to grow, and I'll just give you one more little tip there, is to use the KISS method, and that is to keep it simple. There's no point trying to grow 30 different types of vegetables. Don't turn up with a great big bag full of packets of seeds. You don't need it on your first year. You can grow half a dozen or a dozen, and that's still a lot for your first year, but you can increase it the year after that. If you think, oh well, I like that, I'm going to try this, or I'm going to grow 2 different varieties of this thing, you know. I mean, in here I've got loads of stuff. I've got hundreds of bloody lettuce there. I've got 5 different varieties, I think, 2 different varieties of pak choi, 2 different varieties of mustards. But I've been doing this for years, so I've got a good idea of what I'm doing, and I have failures every year. I mean, I can't count the failures I've had this year on these 2 hands. I can't. It just happens. Mother Nature is always after you, and always trying to bend you to her will. So even I have failures now, and I know what I'm doing, or at least I think I do. But don't try to grow too much on your first year. Just settle on a few varieties, on a few different types of stuff, and go from there. Okay, let's talk about laying your plot out for the first time. In the very first video I mentioned a program called SunCalc, and it's an online thing on a browser, and it's basically a satellite map, and you can navigate to find your plot on that map. And what it does is it overlays on that map where the sun rises and where the sun sets, and more importantly, for any time of the year. Now, my sun rises and sets in the summer. It rises over here and it sets way over there, and if you can imagine the point of a clock, if the sun rises at 3 o'clock, it sets at midnight. So it's a massive arc. Conversely, in the winter, it sort of rises over here and it sets over there. It's a much shallower angle of sun as well. It's much further down in the sky. In the summer the sun's way up there, and in the winter it's over there, and it's only out for a short amount of time. So I've got this plot set out to what I think is the best use of it, to catch that sun. The whole of this front of the plot, there's nothing overshadowing it, and this is my prime growing area. I do grow behind the camera as well, and I've got more beds at the back there as well where I grow, but this is the prime area for growing because of where the sun rises and sets. You're looking at one big bed here. This is 40 foot long by, I think it's 16 foot wide, and that is one of 4 beds that I've got. So I've got one next to it just here on the right hand side, and I've got 2 behind the polytunnels, and that has been for crop rotation. Now, there's been much been said about crop rotation. The idea is that one crop follows another to utilise the nutrients in the ground and to stop a build-up of pests. There is a common thought these days that it's not entirely necessary, but we'll talk about that on another day. That's a little bit complicated to start with, but for the moment, if you work on a crop rotation and you aim to have in your space 4 decent sized beds, so that you can start off with crop rotation, it will teach you a lot of things, and I think it's quite important that you learn those things at the start. So work on a premise of having 4 big beds, and then go from there. Now, there has been much said about the sizes of raised beds. Some people would say 3 foot wide's the best, some will say 4 foot wide's the best, but there is a way to work it out for yourself what is best for you, as opposed to taking somebody else's advice. And I said there's been much written about it, and the simplest way is just to measure it for yourself and crack on with it. So I'll show you a couple of quick tips to help you with that. Right, I've seen this question asked so many times and answered so many times in different ways, and it's what is the best width of a raised bed and what's the best width of a pathway. So I've seen people suggesting 4 foot, 5 foot, 3 foot. They all say as long as you can plant into the middle, it's what's best for you, and so on and so forth. But I've never seen it where somebody says, well, why don't you measure yourself? So that's what we're going to do now. I'm going to measure myself and show you what I mean by that. So sit on a flat surface, right up to something like this, and get yourself comfy for how you would be seated, and then measure yourself. That's 2 foot for there, so therefore I know all my pathways ideal size is 2 foot or more, and then I've got room to sit next to my bed. And then to measure how wide your raised bed should be, sit up next to a bed, again comfy, use a trowel and pop it in the ground. and be sure that you're happy digging in there, and that you can reach in and plant in there. And there you know, that's your depth there. So all you do then is you measure in there, and it's about 28 inches. Double it, 56 inches. So that's 4.5 foot bed width is perfect for me. So I now know that my pathways need to be 2 foot and my bed width is 4.5 foot. If there's somebody else going to be coming and using your plot and working on it, such, you know, along with yourself, like your partner or whatever, do the same thing with them. You may find that they are a different size, and you can work between the sizes that you gain. But this way, very quickly, you've worked out your own path width and the ideal bed width for you, and you haven't had to take on all the multitude of advice that other people have offered you about saying 3 foot, 4 foot, 5 foot. It's measured to you, and that's perfect for you, so you can move on with that. So to recap, plan out at home what you want to grow, keep it simple, manage your time that you need to spend at the allotment and keep it regular and stick to that. And you know, again, combine that with what you're going to be growing and how you're going to be growing it. Work out where the sun is going to fall on your plot and where you're going to put your beds within that plot. If you can, go for 4 big beds. They can always be split up later, but I think that's probably the best way to start. Although in the first year you're going to be digging just the 1 bed, and you'll gradually add more as you go along, as the black plastic will clear the ground for you, and you can eventually make it. You know, it's going to take you a couple of years to get everywhere dug over and start to get some semblance of order. But if you plan initially to make 4 big beds, you can measure out and mark out for that and start digging your first one and plant into that with your minimal amount of seeds. That's going to be enough for the first year, unless you're an absolute Trojan. If you're going to go straight for raised beds straight away, then measure yourself to get the path size and the bed size that is going to be comfortable for you. Remember, it's a hobby coming down to your allotments, and yes, you're providing for your home with food, flowers, veg, and veg and fruit and herbs and things, but it's still a hobby, and you still want it to be enjoyable. You don't want to be coming down and thinking, oh, I've got to do that today. You want to be coming down and say, right, I'll get that done because it's easy. So always sort of try to aim for that way if you can. But that's it for this video, and there'll be more to come in the future. 4 or 5 days for another one of these, and a couple of days for another type of video. So thanks to all the new subscribers. If you haven't subscribed, please do now. The link's just down here, just give it a click and you won't miss any of my future content. But for now, stay safe, look after yourselves, and I'll see you soon. Ta-ra now.